Hi, I'm Rachel, and this is definitely my October 2024 AM reading finale video, considering I'm putting it up in November. I was meaning to make 3 AM reading October videos. It did not work out that way. I'll just have to be cool with that. I also hope to make this video a bit short and sweet. It is November, it's my nano month, there's a lot of, crunch time to crunch a lot of things into. Luckily I do have my literary newsletter already online, which I'll link down below, where I go through all the books I read in October. I have snippets from the Goodreads reviews of all of them that I wrote. I also pick out literary news that caught my fancy. I have a book pick. I pick out a favorite book quote, etc. It's all there. But one thing that actually isn't in that newsletter, but I do put in these AM reading videos, is that I read short stories in literary journals. And perhaps appropriately, I guess it is okay, like I'm justifying that I only did 2 videos for October AM reading, because this also brings me to the very final short story in the Michigan Quarterly Review, Winter 2024. I'm taking November off, the rest of November off of AM reading videos, but then starting in December I will start a brand new literary journal. And the story I am reviewing in this collection is called How to Break Up With Your Husband by Nitya Gupta. And admittedly, I feel like we're ending on a bit of a meh note here, where it's sort of a story that goes into conjecture about, explaining a relationship in largely exposition-y terms about how it begins and where the pitfalls are, and then, why ultimately you would choose to leave said husband. And it's an abusive relationship, and by and large it just sort of covers generic themes of what abusive relationships might look like. It does have, specifics of, a South Asian culture. The writing is pretty good, but I just feel like in general there's nothing all that new or intriguing here. Not necessarily character work beyond kind of archetypes in a way. So, it just, to me, felt like, it's decently written, but it's nothing, special outside the box. So, that's how we're ending with the Michigan Quarterly Review. Another book that we're ending on that I feel meh, or even, less positively than meh about, is Long Island Compromise by Taffy Brodesser-Akner, which I talked about in my last damn reading video when I was still in the middle of it. And in general, my opinions haven't changed much. Certainly not for the better. I know I have some negative feelings, in part because of how hyped this book personally is for me. I loved her first book, Fleischman is in Trouble, and I don't really feel like this one lived up. I feel like she has the same witty style, and she's trying to ask these provocative questions in a funny-ish sort of way about sort of Jewish American upper middle class culture, even more upper middle class, upper class even culture here. Like she's talking about, the trappings of wealth and what it does to people and society, but I feel like the characters were just so ridiculous, the plot was ridiculous, that I just couldn't connect to it at all. It didn't feel real or authentic to me, really, except in part, perhaps, the character of Jenny and the question she was going through about, like, how to live an authentic life, and that maybe, navel-gazing too much and overthinking it too much might lead you to missing out entirely on life. And I feel like hashtag relatable a little bit for that one, and I feel like in that storyline there was some interesting stuff that was maybe happening, even if still a lot of the secondary characters were archetypal. But yeah, overall, this sophomore attempt for me just kind of dropped the ball. And I'm hoping to enjoy later books by her if she gets to them better, and more like Fleischman, hopefully. Another second book to talk about of sorts is Relics of Ruin by Erin M. Evans, in that this is the second book of a fantasy trilogy, I believe it will be. I've read Empire of Exiles a couple of years ago. I really enjoyed it. I also like this one. I guess fitting with the theme, mixed feelings a little bit. In this fantasy world, we're in a secondary fantasy world where a bunch of disparate cultures of humanoids and humans are all living together, like in one area of this globe, because all of their home countries were overtaken by changelings, and so they're all sort of living behind a magical barrier. And there's a lot of focus on the magical relics and sort of the bones of sorcerers, which is like a dangerous profession that are now with them in this like small enclosed space. And we're primarily following a bunch of magical archivists around, which is just so incredibly cool to me on its surface. And then beyond that, there's just an incredible amount of world building in here about how cultures clash, how politics clash. There is a huge dramatis personae, like, in front of this book, in front of the other book. And in that vein, it can be a double-edged sword, because her plot can get so twisted and convoluted with all the, the characters and the backstories and the POVs, that it could be distancing and difficult to sort of keep up with everything. And I also, in general, feel like, there's a murder mystery plot to this, but the MacGuffin stuff is a little less intriguing than I think it was in the first book. But, I'm invested in the world by this point, and there were some characters who came back, like Amadea, who's the sort of lead archivist who takes care of her specialists who have this sort of anxiety type of magical ability, like they have ability to interface with like different elements like ink or bones, which is good for research and also for murder mystery stuff. We're also with Quill again, who's this guy who changed professions, and he's just sort of a lovable caretaker in his own right, and he has a relationship with a character in here who's a little more standoffish, and then he gets to open up a bit, and so that's all just there's just characters like a sense of optimism and empathy in here, while still following some intriguing, fun baddies as well. But it can get so convoluted by the rest of it. But I am in it for the long haul, and hopefully I'll be able to get my bearings well enough for book 3 when it comes out. Staying with a supernatural theme here of sorts is Mother Doll by Katya Apekina. This was one of, my anticipated 2024 releases in literary general fiction. Actually, Relics of Ruin was an anticipated fantasy 2024 release. And this is a literary fiction book, but as I said, there is supernatural elements to it. We are following in the modernish day Xenia, who is a 20s, 30s something Russian-American woman. She finds herself sort of surprisingly pregnant, even though she and her husband didn't want kids. And she's also dealing with the grief of a beloved grandmother dying. And in general, she's a prickly character who, even without the baby issue, sabotages relationships, especially, say, with her husband, soon-to-be ex-husband. So there's a lot of drama going on. She's living in LA. She's sort of a failed actress, and her, former best friend is doing really well in that arena. And she works as a Russian translator in a hospital setting. And she gets a call out of the blue by a medium in New York who has made contact with her great-grandmother, Irina, who abandoned her beloved grandmother in a Russian orphanage back in the day. And it turns out that, Irina is in this book as a ghost, the supernatural element, and has some trauma that, she wants to talk to Xenia about, because it has to do with her history, her Russian revolutionary past history, which she sort of, kept contained to that part of her life before she went to the U.S. on her own and started a brand new family. This worked surprisingly well for me. It could be gimmicky, I think, with the supernatural stuff that doesn't always work for me. The characters could be too trite. It could be way too much about, overcoming past grievances. Instead, I feel like these characters are deliciously flawed throughout, and we're not supposed to, redeem them of sorts, but I do feel like there is a sense of asking what generational trauma is, and looking at, both, broader geopolitical and also, the more interpersonal things that you do to sabotage yourself, or, how to you try to get ahead in your life and sort of, find a way for yourself. And just these characters were just really intriguing to follow most of the time, even if I could eye roll through, the kind of ridiculous supernatural, like how does the ghost stuff work. And, the medium was really kind of done dirty, and I feel like one bigger criticism is I feel like Apekina kind of dropped his storyline a fair bit. I don't know, that was a big convenience. But otherwise, I found it really moving. Maybe it worked that I actually listened to it on audio, and I think the narrator did a great job with the dramatization of it, so it really felt like a story to suck you in. And it is such a story about, like, listening to ancestors around the campfire sort of elements in a way. And so, yeah, this I think worked better for me than I hoped. So that, is a nice highlight. In fact, this probably is my favorite book of the month. Another book that has to do with family and mythology in strange ways, I suppose, is Olympus, Texas by Stacey Swann, which is my final October read, which I picked for my page 112 tag last month. And this is a story that's kind of a retelling of Greco-Roman myths, and imagines some of those gods as the Briscoe family that lives in Olympus, of course, Texas, a small town in Texas. And the story opens up, the inciting incident is the character based off of Ares, actually. March Briscoe returns home hoping he can make do, gain forgiveness without really trying, after being run out of town basically 2 years ago after sleeping with his brother's wife. And it doesn't turn out that easily for him. And it doesn't work as easily as he hoped it would. He is perhaps helped along by the secondary story overtaking his own, and like he gets to be family support for the fact that he has two half-siblings based off of Apollo and Artemis, and they actually are sort of like going through the motions of the Orion myth. And I have to admit, I had to like look up a lot of this stuff. My memory of Greco-Roman mythology is lacking. But Arlo and Artie are the half-siblings of March and his other siblings. And Artie is a hunter, like Artemis. Arlo is sort of a musician, like Apollo is. And they kind of are like them against the world, but Artie decides to stop being Arlo's manager. He's a country music singer, and she goes home and she falls in love with a guy who Artie and the rest of the family don't really, Arlo and the rest of the family don't really like that much. Too many similar names in here. And there's a tragic accident where this boyfriend dies, and there's just, trauma and cover-ups and all that sort of stuff that goes along after that. And I think it's just supposed to go into the fact that Artie and Arlo, kind of like Apollo and Artemis, or Artemis and Apollo more technically, kind of make mistakes by being kind of cruel and callous, and things kind of get out of hand, which is sort of what the Briscoes are like, that they're this like family that's sort of, the big men on campus, sort of top family in town. And they act in callous ways. We have, the father figure who's like Zeus and having constant affairs, and the mother figure like Hera is casually cruel. And the way they interact with the rest of the town, like the family of the boyfriend, is like they kind of step over them and don't even seem to care that much. And I feel like that was really interesting commentary when the rest of the town kind of got to, speak truth to power. That might be my favorite part of this book. But in general, I again feel like with some other books, the rest of the plot could be convoluted, in part because, of course, everything takes place within a week. So it really, the fact that all of this happens within a week, and also there's, an arc with March and his brother and his sister-in-law and their drama too. It's just like, it's a lot. And it feels after a while like melodrama and not like, actual character studies, which is, what I go to for literary fiction, and it's just not enough to coast on. Oh, cool, she's, doing stuff with these myths, and, maybe there's some psychology in here about, human callousness and the way we treat each other, but just it doesn't come together for me because of the constraints of the plot and just how much is stuffed into here. It doesn't really feel as authentic as I would like. So, I had fun reading it. It was enjoyable, and there were some, highlights. But overall, it just like, I don't know. I think I rated it too highly with 4 stars. I think I rate too many things 4 stars in general. Although also I don't have as many 5-star reads this year. I think that's just something to ruminate on. I don't think I gave any books this month 5 stars, but who knows? Maybe hopefully November will be different. I will be talking about the books I read in November in my nano vlogs, and then do a reading wrap up probably in the beginning of December. And with that, I guess I am finished with this here video. And speaking of these nano vlogs, I'm going to be back on this channel imminently Wednesday morning to post my first weekly nano vlog where, I talk about my progress in writing and take you around town, that sort of thing. And then sometime after that, in the week following, I am going to do my November page 112 tag video, which is my monthly TBR game where I pick 3 random physical books off my shelves and read in page 112 from each, and then add 1 book to my month's reading goals. So stay tuned for that. So I hope all of you had a fun, engaging month of October reading that is continuing into November. Thanks so much for watching, everyone, and I'll see you next time.